Alright, so I'm getting everything ready for the weekend here. We have another weekend of archery deer season before firearm opens up. And so before I hunt, every time before I hunt, I go through my, check the sharpness on my arrowheads. And back in the day, we had these, bare razor heads, and there were no, when I started archery deer hunting, there were no mechanical heads. I've used mechanical heads. I've used them on turkey, I've used them on deer, and they're good, but I got back into using these fixed blade heads. These are single bevel tough head, 300 grain tough head with I got a 75 grain insert, so this gives me a arrow with it's a 31% forward to center. They fly really, really well. I shot 2 of these into the a 1.5 inch wide mark at 30 yards. They shoot really well. I haven't had the opportunity to shoot a deer with them yet, but that's just a matter of time. But I wanted to go through how I sharpen them and how I check sharpness. This head's pretty sharp right now, but you know, being in the quiver, coming into contact with some stuff, and I take the one I'm hunting with out, and it invariably is going to touch some stuff and dull it a little bit. And you really want to have a sharp cutting edge as you possibly can get. And the reason why, and I'll show when I test the sharpness, is because the things that you want to cut are pretty elastic. Your veins and arteries have a consistency of a rubber band, and so that's what we test them with. What I test them with, and they, you know, they're tough, they're elastic, and if your head is not really sharp, you might push a vein or an artery right out of the way without cutting it, and end up with losing a deer. So what I'm going to show here is, number one, I have these. Let's show here. I have my stones soaking in water. I used to use oil, but it kind of becomes a mess with storing and transporting them. So that's what we did back in the day. They were used with oil, but now I'll go with water. But anyway, with these single bevel heads, with the single bevel head, you can lay this surface right flat on the stone. Lay it right flat on the stone, and you can feel that when it hits that. Right there, it doesn't rock, and it doesn't take much when they're in pretty good shape. I got it right flat on the stone, and I can draw it towards me. there's no magic in the number of strokes you do per edge, you know, other than you want to wear them evenly. But once you got this flat, I mean, once on these single bevel heads, once you have it flat on the stone, and you don't want to use too much pressure, because the more pressure you use, the more of a burr. You want to get a burr, but you don't want to have too much of a burr. So, you know, it becomes a little harder to work off the other side. But you get it flat on there, and you can either, I mean, you can move in any direction as long as you don't start to rock on the stone. So you can even go, you know, this way, flat on that surface. And you would do that until sometimes you can feel when you have a problem with when you have some roughness on the edge. But you would do that until you, so I had the stone on this side, and I would do that until I raised the burr on this side, and I could feel it going this way, just a slight, you know, I could feel a slight burr. Once I get that burr, and come back on this other side, and just, you know, lightly work this edge until that burr comes off. Or it'll push it, what it'll do is it'll push it maybe towards this side, depending on the hardness of the material in your heads. But so once we've done that, there's two ways I do this, and it gives people a heart attack. But if you don't have a strap, and you're not too clumsy, I gotta take my ring off for doing this. But if you don't have a strap and you're not too clumsy, what you can do is you can use your hand, or I do. I just said before, don't take my advice, but you can use your hand. I have you know, I have my belt. My belt is my strap. That's what I use. And you can kind of gauge the burr by what's happening on the strap. So if I take this and I go right with this bevel flat on the strap, and I don't push down too hard, I can feel, and I can even see where, you see where you're getting this light colored thing going on here, where it that's the burr dragging on the strap. We go here, and there's a bit of a burr right there. If you can see that, how that is dragging, and we can go back and forth until it's microscopic, tiny burr we're talking about. And go to the other edge. This one seems to have a little bit of a burr down here, but the idea here is that the fibers in the strap will take that burr, what's that really fine burr, and what it does is it works it back and forth like that. If we're looking down this edge, the microscopic, this comes to an edge. There's this burr that develops when you grind on, say you grind on this side, this burr comes this way, and then you come back and grind on this side, the burr comes this way, and what we want to do is we want to work that burr until that it forms almost like a wire, and once it breaks off, it leaves this finer, more microscopic cutting edge. And if we come on here, you kind of feel where we're not pushing hard. We can kind of see, and we can kind of feel where the edge is dragging, or you can feel it with your hand. And once we've done that, we should be able to, that hair should just fly off like that. If it's not doing that, it's definitely not sharp enough. So now, and along the whole length of the blade, that's what we should be taking right off. And then the other test, this other test, I'll come in here real close so we can see it. So this rubber band is more the consistency of the material you got to cut in the animal. And what we want to do is we want this edge to be able to cut this without this trying to roll. So as soon as it contacts it, well, let's see if I have to take it off of here. This arrow shafts kind of get in the way of showing this, but don't want to pull this too tight. Don't want to pull this too tight, but what we want to do is we want to see that this edge will cut this without this band. You know, this band will start to roll like that. We don't want that. We just want this thing to cut right through. So, and without a lot of pressure. So you should be able to just right there and barely touching this band, and it just goes, sinks right through it. And check the other side here. Just like that. It should go right through. You know. Let's see what we're looking at here. All right. See, it just barely with just a slight touch. It's maybe, yeah, there it goes. See, I'll try this without even sliding it this way. I just push it into there. If I just push it in that way, and it cuts, we're talking really sharp. So try this again. Pushing in. You know, I'm holding this, barely holding onto this just so I don't drop it. And I drag it across that band, and it cuts it like that. Then you know you got something. Then you know that you've done everything you can to ensure a humane, harvest, and painless cut. You know, you ever had you got cuts with a really sharp knife or whatever, you can't feel that, and this thing goes through an animal so fast it knows something happened, but might not know what. It really doesn't feel that. And then, you know, the hemorrhage occurs on all sizes of the blood vessels. You know, we're not just talking the large veins and arteries. We're talking about the smaller stuff. You cut a whole bunch of capillaries, and they're cut clean. Without that, there's some evidence that trauma with a duller edge, that blunt force trauma with a duller edge, causes that clotting action to begin. it causes that clotting action to begin. But with a really sharp edge, that doesn't start, and so the blood loss continues on. Like I said earlier, you take a cut from a really sharp instrument, just doesn't seem like it wants to stop bleeding, and it's the same thing here. But you cut through a whole bunch of capillaries, smaller vessels, and they don't stop. All that adds up, and it all adds up to shorter blood trail and quicker recovery, more humane harvest. So that's it. It doesn't take a lot of stuff. I got different stones I've collected over the years. Some are natural and some are artificial. Like this one is a stone we used in dye work in the dye shop, tooling trades. Here's another one. Same thing here. It's artificial stone. Here's one that's it's got a coarse and a fine side. And the thing about this this coarse side is that although it takes more material, it also wears away faster, so it becomes uneven. I don't know if it shows up good here, but you can tell there's the surface is uneven. But that's just to take out, this one I would use to take out big chips and nicks in the cutting edge. And you can always work it against the other stones. You kind of work them together and work to keep them flat. So this is Arkansas. This is a natural stone. It's hard Arkansas stone. It's pretty close in grit to this stone here. And then this one is a really coarse stone used in dye work for hard steel, dye steel. But if on a double bevel head, the only thing different is maintaining that edge from both sides, and it has each side has a narrower flat on it, so it's a little bit harder to keep it flat on the stone, which is aside from the some of the other superior qualities of a single bevel head, the one thing is in this case is, and the edge is straight too, which simplifies sharpening. Anytime you have a curve, you have to work all the way along that curve. Like when you do a knife with some belly on the cutting edge, you have to follow that, which is, it's not difficult, but it's a little more difficult than this. This one you can lay flat on the stone. You can work it back until you raise a burr, and you do the other edge. You knock the burr off of the other side. Try it on the strop, and if it's dragging too much on the strop, you probably have to go back to the stone and just lightly work each edge to get that to remove that burr a little bit more, and then go back to the strop. And if it feels like nothing's there, you work it on the strop a little bit and come right up, check the sharpness, and you're good to go. So hopefully this helps, and hopefully hopefully I get to shoot this or something this weekend. So anyway, other than that, thanks for stopping by.